This episode is brought to you by CookUnity. As someone passionate about home dining, CookUnity has brought a new solution to my table. Unlike conventional food delivery services, CookUnity operates as a chef-to-you platform, delivering exceptional restaurant-quality meals directly to your doorstep. They're so good that our crew eats them on shoot days instead of ordering in. Today I'm trying the White Bean Korma Curry by Chef Emily Peck. Other favorites of mine are the Chicken Shawarma Rice Bowl by Chef Chase Evans and the Barbecue Chicken by Chef Chris Rattel. Real chefs, real flavors, that's what I love about CookUnity. Upgrade your dining game at cookunity.com/Babish50 or click the link below. Using my code Babish50 supports this channel and also gets you an exclusive 50% off your first order. Alright, so in order to make shrimp, first we have to talk about shrimp. In particular, what kind of shrimp to buy. And unless you live on the bayou and you're grabbing them by the fistful straight out of the nets, it's almost always better to buy shrimp frozen. In fact, the majority of quote-unquote fresh shrimp sold at grocery stores was more often than not frozen itself. So by buying frozen, you're getting a better product that was flash frozen at the peak of freshness. Then there's size: small, medium, large, extra large, jumbo, and colossal. This little guy right here is a medium, perfect for most bite-sized applications. Once you've acquired your frozen shrimp, they must then be defrosted. There's the slow and steady way, placing it in a colander, set inside of a bowl to catch any shrimp drippings, and placed in the fridge overnight, tossing occasionally until defrosted. Then the fast method involves placing the shrimp in a zip-top bag, then slowly submerging the bag in water while closing the zipper as it's submerged. This is going to force most of the air out of the bag and give you something akin to a vacuum seal. It's important to get air out of the bag because this guy needs to stay submerged while he defrosts. Go ahead and reshuffle those around so the shrimp lay flat, place back in a bowl of cold water and weigh down. You can use a heavy bowl, plate, or chef weight like this. Then you can either place this under cold running tap water, or if you don't like that sound of constant urination, top things off with a few scoops of ice, replacing the ice as it melts until the shrimp are defrosted. Now there's another shrimp factor to take into consideration: its level of peeledness. Shrimp are mostly available fully peeled and deveined, full shell on, tail on, or my favorite, what I have right here, easy peel. This is a shell on shrimp that's been deveined, and in doing so made much easier to peel, per the name. As you can see, it's been cut open down the back from the deveining process, so with little to no effort, it jumps right out of its shell. Why not just buy fully peeled shrimp? Because if you're grilling or broiling, the shell can act as a protective barrier against the intense heat, but for almost every other application, these shells can be put to work amplifying shrimp flavor, in particular by using them to make a shrimp stock. We're going to start by sauteing them in a large pot with a little bit of oil, just to wake up their flavor and create some fond. After about 2 to 3 minutes, the shells are going to turn a lovely shade of pink. I'm also going to add a tablespoon of whole peppercorns, might as well toast those up. And before long, we're going to start seeing some stuff stick on the bottom of the pot. This is fond, this is flavor. To harvest that fond, we're going to deglaze it, adding 6 cups of water to the pot, along with any of the following stuff if you happen to have some on hand. Old bottle of dry white wine in the fridge, glug that stuff in there. Any carrots starting to look sad and floppy, peel them up, chop them down, toss them in. Same with those skinny stalks and leaves from the center of a celery, a whole head of garlic that's starting to sprout, and an onion on the edge of insolvency. Add some more water to cover everything up, and for bonus points, I'm going to add the juice and carcass of 1 whole lemon, 3 or 4 dried bay leaves, and a sprig of tarragon that was giving me attitude. Cover this guy up, bring him to a rolling simmer, lower the heat, and hold him at a bare simmer. Just a few curious bubbles breaking the surface. Partially cover and cook for 20 minutes to 1 hour, after which time you'll be rewarded with a deeply flavorful shrimp stock, one that you can either allow to cool and then refrigerate or freeze for future applications, or in which you can cook the very shrimp from whence it came, adding layers of shrimpy flavor to your dish. But first, one more trick to use in virtually any shrimp recipe: a dry brine of 1 tablespoon of kosher salt to 1 teaspoon of baking soda. Mix these guys up, and when sprinkled liberally over raw shrimp, the salt's going to deeply flavor and tenderize the shrimp, and the baking soda is going to help it retain moisture, help it maintain a firm, crisp texture, and if grilling or sauteing, will help it brown better. Basically, just evenly sprinkle this mixture over 1 pound of raw shrimp and let it hang out in the fridge for 20 minutes to 1 hour. There's almost no shrimp recipe that this step will not improve, including our first one, poaching for shrimp cocktail. I got about 6 cups of our stock here, to which I'm going to add 2 cups of water, because we're going to want about 2 quarts of cooking liquid for this method. First, we're covering and bring this guy up to a rolling boil, then killing the heat, and once most of the bubbles have dissipated, adding our defrosted raw shrimp. I've got some jumbo shrimp here that I've left the tail on for shrimp cocktail. Add 1 pound of shrimp to the cooking liquid, give it a little stir, cover it up, and we're just going to let the residual heat of the hot water cook the shrimp, which could take anywhere from 4 to 10 minutes depending on their size. We want to pull them once they're pink pink and firm, and or their thickest point registers 145 degrees Fahrenheit. This method cooks the shrimp more gently than just straight up boiling them, so they'll be more tender and less stringy. We're also going to plunge these guys straight into an ice bath, which is going to halt the cooking process and keep them juicy and plump. As for our shrimp stock, it's just been made all the shrimpier, so as long as it wasn't previously fridged, it can now be saved for other recipes. Pat these guys dry, wrap tightly, and refrigerate until ready to use, for which the most obvious application is shrimp cocktail. 1 cup chili sauce, half cup ketchup, 1 to 4 tablespoons of horseradish to your taste, a few dashes of bright vinegary hot sauce again to your taste, and a few dashes of Worcestershire sauce again to your taste. Tiny whisk to combine, spoon into your vessel of choice, and elegantly arrange the shrimp around the rim. But apart from shrimp cocktail, shrimp salad, shrimp ceviche, and more, poached shrimp can also be reheated and served hot, ideally very gently and as part of the cooking itself. A great example of this is in a simple Thai coconut curry. In a large sauté pan, I'm heating a few tablespoons of neutral flavored oil over medium heat until shimmering, adding half a finely chopped onion and sautéing for 2 to 3 minutes until softened and translucent, adding 2 large chopped cloves of garlic, sautéing for 30 seconds or until fragrant, adding a heaping tablespoon of red Thai curry paste, optionally some grated lemongrass, which I happen to have lying around, sauté that for another 30 seconds or until extremely fragrant. Then we're going to grate in about an inch of fresh ginger, sautéing that together for another 30 seconds or until extraordinarily fragrant, and cooking until the curry paste starts to stick to the bottom of the pan. We're going to deglaze this with some of our delicious shrimp stock if you have it handy. If not, you could use chicken stock or just water. Scrape up all that good stuff off the bottom of the pan. Then we're adding 1 14-ounce can of unsweetened coconut milk, mixing that in and bring things up to a simmer. I'm also going to add 2 thinly sliced Fresno chilies. You could also use bird's eye or even jalapeno, 1 large chopped red bell pepper, about a tablespoon of chopped Thai basil, and a tablespoon of chopped parsley or cilantro. I'm also going to add about a 1/4 cup of high quality fish sauce and the zest and juice of 1 lime, creating a devastatingly flavorful and aromatic curry base. Now we're going to bring this guy up to a simmer and let him cook for 10 to 15 minutes until slightly thickened and the vegetables are tender but crisp. And now's when we reheat the shrimp, almost like the poaching method all over again, reducing the heat to a bare bubble, adding the shrimp, killing the heat, giving things a stir, covering and letting heat through. And that's all there is to it. A profoundly flavorful curry ready in about 30 minutes, and thanks to the gentle reheating process, the shrimp are still tender crisp. Generally speaking, there's 2 ways to cook shrimp, gently and slowly or fastly and hotly. So let's see how to saute shrimp for a spicy shrimp pasta. First, I'm bringing the shrimp stock up to a simmer because I'm going to use it to cook the pasta, adding a bit of water to make sure there's enough liquid. You can saute shrimp in stainless, non-stick, cast iron, whatever you like, but in anything that's not non-stick, just make sure you use plenty of fat. I've heated a couple tablespoons of oil until shimmering and almost smoking, patted my shrimp dry, and spaced them out evenly in the pan. Almost as soon as you've got them in, these guys should be ready to flip, especially if you're using stainless or cast iron. They'll easily lift off the pan once a nice seared crust is formed. You can even just give the pan a nice shake to see who's slipping around and ready to flip. You could just cook them to completion, but I'm going to try to just sear these and finish them in the sauce, which I'm going to start building in the pan by virtue of all that delicious fond. Add half a small finely minced onion to the pan. If the fond is too sticky or starting to burn, you can deglaze with a little bit of that shrimp stock. Then once that evaporates and things start to sizzle again, I'm adding 3 cloves of thinly sliced garlic, sauteing for the usual fragrant 30 seconds, then adding a 1/4 cup each tomato paste and a slightly less visually appealing sun-dried tomato paste. Saute those together for 1 to 2 minutes or until, like the curry paste, it starts to stick to the bottom of the pot. I'm also going to add 4 thinly sliced Calabrian chilies, but you could just use chili paste or crushed red pepper to your taste. Now I'm going to ladle over about 1 cup of shrimp stock to deglaze the fond and start building a sauce. I'm also going to add about a 1/4 cup of heavy cream to cut through all the spice and acidity. In that same breath, I'm adding a half pound of pasta to my shrimp stock, immediately giving it a shuffle so that it doesn't stick together, and letting it cook while my sauce simmers about 2 minutes shy of its recommended cook time. I'm also going to hit the sauce with some fresh herbs. I got about a tablespoon each chopped fresh parsley and tarragon, but you could also use basil. The sauce will continue to thicken and mellow while the pasta cooks, and once the pasta is just a little bit too toothsome to eat, we're adding it to the sauce along with another half cup of the shrimp stock, now laden with starch from cooking the pasta, which is going to make for a lovely, cohesive, glossy sauce. Cook the pasta for another 2 to 3 minutes, adding more shrimp stock as necessary, until it's tender and the sauce has reached the consistency of your choosing. Taste for seasoning and hit it with plenty of kosher salt and freshly ground black pepper, and in the last minute or so of cooking, we're going to add the shrimp and bring them over the finish line in the sauce. Dole this stuff out, top with a little bit of fresh herbs, and if you're a cheese and seafood kind of person, hit it with some freshly grated Parmesan or Romano cheese. And there you have it, another quick and easy dish, this time cooking the shrimp on the spot. So at this point, you've tried poaching, sauteing, and reheating, and you want a taste of the hard stuff. That means it's time to deep fry. But first, let's talk butterflying, the simple but tedious task of using a sharp knife to cut around the outside circumference of the shrimp about 3/4 of the way through its body. You don't want to cut all the way through, you want to leave a membrane that'll hold the two halves together. Now there are 3 reasons that you might want to do this. First, it allows the shrimp to cook a little bit more quickly and evenly. Second, it creates kind of a more elegant presentation when poached. And third, it massively increases surface area, which in deep frying translates to more crunchy coating per bite. First, let's talk breading. You can bread shrimp pretty much any way that you'd bread chicken. Start with flour, which is going to help the eggs stick to the shrimp, then into egg, and then the breading of your choosing. Breadcrumbs, panko, cornflakes, more flour. I'm going with a 50-50 mix of semolina and all-purpose flour. I'm beating my 2 eggs together with a little splash of cold water and a pinch of kosher salt, both of which are going to help the egg beat up more evenly with less streaks of yolk and white. Now we're going to hold open the cut of the butterflied shrimp and press it into the flour, making sure that every nook and cranny gets coated, except for the tail, which I've left on for easier dipping, frying, and eating. Next up, make sure it gets thoroughly and evenly coated with egg, and then into the breading mixture of semolina and flour, pressing it into every crevice to maximize eventual crunch. Now this was the moment that I realized that I don't really need the initial flour station. This mixture of flour and semolina will work just fine for both phases, but make sure you're coating in plain flour first if you're using any kind of breadcrumb. Once all the shrimp are coated, I'm going to leave them buried in the breading to ensure an even coat when it comes time to fry. Speaking of which, these guys are headed into some neutral flavored frying oil like vegetable or canola, heated to 350 degrees Fahrenheit for anywhere from 1 to 2 minutes, until the shrimp are cooked through and the breading is golden brown and crisp. Drain on a wire rack and salt immediately, as the salt sticks better while the breading is still hot. Now all these guys need is a dipping sauce. I'm going to go with a sort of punched up remoulade, combining 1 cup of Kewpie mayo, 1 tablespoon of Dijon mustard and optionally of whole grain mustard if you feel like it, a few hearty glugs of Worcestershire sauce, the juice and optionally the zest of 1 lemon, 2 scallions very finely minced. I'm also going to add a few swigs of very basic hot sauce, pinch of salt, a few twists of pepper, 1 teaspoon of smoked paprika, a sprinkle of cayenne pepper to your taste, and 1 crushed clove of fresh garlic or a teaspoon of garlic powder. Whisk until homogeneous, and you've got the perfect accompaniment to breaded shrimp, particularly those breaded with cornmeal or semolina. The shrimp is juicy, the shell is devastatingly crisp, and the exposed tails keep things classy. So that's breaded. Now what about battered? For that, I wanted to try my hand at some homemade bang bang shrimp. I've got some non-butterflied tail-off shrimp here that I'm coating in potato starch, shaking off the excess and setting aside. Then I'm reserving 3/4 of a cup of that potato starch, then combining it with a 1/2 cup of all-purpose flour and 1 teaspoon of baking powder. Whisk until homogeneous and wait until you're ready to fry before adding the wets. I got a 1/2 cup of vodka that I put in the freezer about an hour ago so that it's nice and cold, and a 1/2 cup of ice water. Whisk together until smooth and the consistency of like buttermilk. You don't want it to be too watery, but you don't want it to be like pancake batter either. Make sure you got your oil preheated and ready to go at this stage. Now all we got to do is add our shrimp, toss to thoroughly coat, then pick them up by the tail, shaking off any excess batter, and carefully lower into our frying oil heated to 375 degrees Fahrenheit. Then fry for just like 90 seconds. They're not going to be as golden brown as our semolina breading, but you can pull them as soon as they start to turn a little blonde. Drain on a wire rack, salt while still hot if you're just eating them like this, or grab the sauce that you made earlier. I fried the shrimp in potato starch because I find that it stays crispier longer, which we're going to especially need because we're tossing them in a mayo-based sauce. You can definitely use Kewpie or just store-bought mayonnaise, but I happen to have some homemade stuff here. If you want to learn how to make homemade mayo, click the link in the upper right-hand corner right now. I'm combining about a 1/2 cup of mayo with a 1/2 cup of sweet chili sauce and 1/4 to a 1/2 cup of sriracha, depending on how much zing you want things to have. Tiny whisk to combine, taste for spiciness, and this stuff's ready to be generously glugged into a bowl with our fried shrimp and jostled about until evenly coated. Plate up and garnish with some sliced scallions, and get ready for the best freaking shrimp you've ever had in your life. They're sweet, spicy, tangy, and rich, and they stay crisp way longer than they should. I hope you guys learned some tips and tricks you can apply to your own recipes. Make your bang bang shrimp bang harder, or if you've never tried cooking shrimp before, that this musters you to grab the ocean by the short and curlies. Sorry, that was gross, but accurate. Thanks again to Cook Unity for sponsoring this episode. With dishes meticulously crafted by esteemed chefs like Food Network veterans to James Beard Award recipients, it feels as though you have the masters personally catering to your mealtime with a flexible schedule. With Cook Unity, you can set your preferences to call out what you like and don't like, then pick a plan and get menus tailored to your taste 2 weeks in advance. And with chef quality in mind, their meals arrive fresh, not frozen, with chef's instructions and nutrition details attached. Go to cookunity.com/babish50 or click the link in the description and use my code Babish50 to get 50% off your first order of Cook Unity meals to try them out for yourself.